There we go. All right. So thanks for joining me today on About Alberta Tech. But Alberta Tech is focused on introducing Alberta tech companies to Albertans. And our goal is to share the innovation and diversity that actually exists in this province in quick, small bites. So my name is Lenora Thomas, and today I'm joined by Trent Oster, who is the CEO of Beamdog. And I really want to thank you for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome. It's great to get the stories out. I mean, tech is such a big thing here that's so quiet. We need to kind of start broadcasting about how big technology is in Alberta and how much of a success it really is. It
really is. And so let's start with some background on you. So how did you get into tech?
Oh gosh, that's a horrible question. So in the summer of 1994, we made a bet. Myself, my older brother, and my high school friend, Marcel Zeschuk. And the deal was, if we could make a video game by the end of the summer, we were going to become professional game developers. And
okay, that's awesome.
At the end of the summer, we had a game. It was called Blastroids 3D, and it was kind of this like 2D scaling sprite asteroids thing. And it was atrocious. It was so horrible. And it literally used up almost the entire memory of the computer. This was back in the day when they had like 640K and we were like 625K. So you had to do like high mem your mouse drivers and stuff just to get it to work. But we did it. We're like, okay, we are now professional game developers. So let's go for it. Let's make the big game. So we started on a game that became Shattered Steel.
Oh, wow.
After a couple months of working on it, Greg Zeschuk, Marcel's cousin, who used to come down and visit all the time, came down and said, hey, what are you guys doing? And we're like, we're making games. And he's like, this is awesome. I want to be part of this. And I got these other doctors who want in on it as well. So they came down, we all met up, and that was actually the beginning of BioWare. So we worked.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so we worked together. I was at BioWare until 2009. When I left BioWare, literally as I walked out the door, I was calling on the phone. I called my current partner, Cameron Topher, who I had worked with at BioWare as well. And I was like, Cam, we always talked about doing something together. Today's that day. We're doing it. And he's like, okay. What are we doing? So we got together and we started brainstorming about what we wanted to build, and we came up with the idea for Beamdog.
That's fantastic. Now, what does Beamdog do for those that aren't familiar?
So Beamdog is primarily a game developer, but we actually also have our own self-publishing portal. So we can take video games and we can put them up where we can sell them directly to our consumers. They can download the games straight from us, and it really gets the most revenue directly to us as a game developer. We also work with other portals. So we've got our games up on Steam. We've got them on Apple, on the App Store. We've got them on Google Play, on the Google Play Store. So they're spread out pretty far and wide, but we still have that kind of direct channel on the PC to our own customers.
That's fantastic. And based on the fact that these are on Google, they're on Apple, that you have Steam, I mean, you have users worldwide.
Yeah, we actually did a stat. We found there was one country in the world that we hadn't sold a game in. Out of all the games that report in Google Analytics, there was one country, and it was some African nation. I just don't remember what it was. It was like something weird. I just remember looking at it. I'm like, why is that one spot white? Everywhere else in the world has some color on it, but that spot does not. So apparently nobody in that country bought a game off of us.
Well, that's pretty good coverage, though.
Not bad, not bad. I think they've got the majority of countries represented, and we've sold at least one copy in almost every country.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, we've got Baldur's Gate. Our one title is in 19 different languages, so it's spread pretty far and pretty wide.
That is pretty far and pretty wide. I'm going to go slightly off script here. And for that, do you have to bring in people to translate?
Oh yeah, we work with localization partners, and what's funny is we actually did a couple translations just with volunteers. So we had fans of the original games that we'd worked on, Baldur's Gate and so on, and they were like, "Hey, I love this game, but I live in Turkey, and the game's never been ported to Turkish. Could I help you guys port it? I've got a group of people who we can both speak and read English and Turkish, so we could localize and help localize it for you." We're like, okay, let's set this up. So we actually built a website, and it was set up in such a way we had editors on the site, and we had volunteer translators, and the translators would go through, translate the text, and the editors could approve or suggest revisions, and we actually wound up iterating towards a pretty high quality translation. And it was one of the first games to actually, of that scale, to launch in Turkey. Like, and this is huge, like 1.4 million words of dialogue. So it was just crazy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
They were committed.
they were definitely committed. There was a lot of quality coming out of that fan translation group.
No kidding. Um, so when you and Cam started Beamdog, why did you choose Alberta?
Um, Mainly, I was already in Alberta, so part of that was from the Bioware days.
Hmm.
Bioware was set up in Alberta. There's a good training ground here between the University of Alberta, University of Calgary. We're really good computer science students, and there's a really strong technology vibe to the cities. So there's a really strong base to build off of from that respect. And another thing is, there actually wasn't a ton of competition. So that local talent,
Oh,
they've only got so many options in where they can go. And if they're like, hey, I want to work at a cool game company, you don't have a ton of options. So you're like, okay, I'll work for one of these guys.
that's awesome. And with Beamdog, you're currently, you've got a fairly stable game set, but what are you growing towards?
So right now we're actually 60 people. So we've got this kind of backlog. We call them our legacy products. So these are all the games that we've kind of taken ownership on. We've carried them forward. We've improved them, brought them to a big variety of different platforms. But then as well, going forward, we're building new titles. So we just did a deal with Hasbro for Axis and Allies Online. We launched that last year. We're continuing to iterate that forward. It's currently only on PC and only on Steam, but we're going to be broadening that out over time. And then we're actually working on an all new product, which is a new intellectual property that we're going to own going forward.
That's fantastic. And beyond that, what else should people know about you and about Beamdog?
Uh, that is a good question. I think what they should know about us is that we're really trying to do something interesting here. Like, I've seen game development from a team of 3 people up to a team of 300 people. There's really some sweet spots in there where there's 30, 40 people involved, where there's a lot of ownership. There's a lot of impact. When you're making a game, you as an individual contributor can actually see the mark that you leave on the game. And when you're working with a really talented small team, you can make amazing things. And I think that's one of the things we're really trying to build as a company is we don't want to be this Model T production line, assembly line for making games where guy X just twiddles one widget. We want to be an artisanal studio where there's a bunch of craftspeople who work together to make a quality product that they're really proud of and that our fans really enjoy. And we want to talk to our fans about it and say, hey, what did you like about what we're building? What don't you like? How can we make it better? And really have that kind of honest interaction with them going forward. And really, I mean, we've got our values up on the wall, and really one of our huge values is that artisanal craftsmanship. Building something like building something that's elegant and simple is actually way harder than building something that's horribly complicated and convoluted, because it requires a ton of effort just to distill it down to that core essence that's really satisfying. And that's really what we aspire to.
That is fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, and in terms of things about me, I don't get to make games much anymore being a CEO, so I'm a blacksmith as a hobby. So that is my escape. So instead of making games, I make axes and knives and such.
Well, considering some of your games, that's very appropriate.
It's a satisfying thing, and I don't need to organize 20 people together and get them all oriented. I can just go and I can do it myself. So I find it really satisfying, and I tend to go through hobbies like that where I really can create by myself. I really find it,
I bet.
yeah, it allows me to bring another perspective into everything. So every hobby I get into, it affects what other things I'm working on in some way. And I think as a studio, we really believe that allowing people to have some diversity and to have a hobby and to have this kind of balance between their work and their home life makes our ideas better, makes the things we make better.
It sounds ideal to me.
I don't know about ideal. We're striving for balance.
And that's such a huge thing in this arena of technical work. You can dig in for too many hours and kind of lose a thread, but if you step away, you can come back and be ready for the next day.
I've gone the whole cycle where I've worked so many hours on a product. Like when I was at BioWare, I put in 5 years of overtime on one project. So 1 year was like 6 days a week, and then the other 4 years was 7 days a week. The last 2 weeks, I was like 212 hours getting a game done. It was just, I hit the finish line and I was done. I just collapsed. I slept for like 3 days, came back into the office, and it took a long time to get over that level of burnout. I was
believe it.
I was a bit of an emotional wreck. I couldn't handle Disney movies. They would just break me. I would just Bambi was like a wrecking ball. That would just crush me. Yeah, it took a while to get over. So I don't want to put people through that, because that's not a good place to be in.
No kidding. I'm glad to hear that you don't expect that of your team, and I hope that you can watch Bambi now.
I'm good with Bambi. It's still hard though. Wow. Oof.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Again, this is Trent Oster with Beamdog. He's the CEO there. And Trent, just to check, are you hiring right now for any positions?
The answer is yes. We're always hiring. So we've actually got a bunch of jobs posted on our site, and we're kind of always looking for the right people. There's just so many different skills in our game, in the game creation process. We're always looking for skilled individuals who can come in and join the team.
That's awesome.